Welcome back to Light Talk, where the guests can be themselves and tell their own unique experiences in the metaphysical world. If you have your own unique stories, I would love to chat with you. Please email lighttalk423 at gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on that there like and subscribe buttons. Well, let's get started here. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome to the show.
Thank you. My name is Alice Moon, and I live in Laramie, Wyoming. I grew up in a haunted house. Later in my life, I moved to another haunted house, and I have many experiences from both those places and a couple of other things, and have also had UFO experiences. And as far as my work, I teach people how money works, and I kind of like to say, I'm a little different from the typical stuffed white shirt financial planner, financial professional type person. So, love to meet anybody who's interested in talking to somebody that's not quite in the box for that kind of stuff.
Awesome, awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's start talking about something with the first house that you grew up in.
Well, the house that I grew up in, this was in south of San Diego, and it was kind of a older house, and we moved there when I was about a year old. And so any of my beginning memories all have to do with experiences that I had in this home. And of course, being a child, thinking that that's kind of a natural thing and not realizing that it was something out of the ordinary. Um, and it was just like all kinds of things, like hearing people call my name, like standing in the yard yelling, Alice, Alice, and I'd go to the window, what? And there's nobody out there. Or the things like where you hear the parents call the kid and you run downstairs to see what they want, and we didn't call you. Um, Things moving, seeing entities and things like that, doors opening and shutting, TV turning on by itself. I mean, it was just like so constant. And I remember like one time sitting at dinner and we're all at the table and could see the kitchen counter, and I see this fork just slide along the counter and fall on the floor. And daily occurrences kind of thing. But one of my favorite stories that even my brother and sister and I were all part of this story, plus my brother's childhood friend. And we were all teenagers at the time. So it wasn't like we were young, impressionable children. And with the way we were raised, my dad was a doctor, my mom was a nurse. And so we always were taught to look at things scientifically and kind of analyze things, like not just instantly believe in the mystical kind of thing. But on this particular night, my parents were out and my brother had his friends spending the night. My brother had a paper route, and he and his friend had been rolling up the newspapers or whatever they had to do to get ready for the paper route at 4 o'clock in the morning or what have you. And we were all upstairs. This was a 2-story home, and it was a rather large home, I think around 4,000 square feet, something like that. It was a big home. And we were upstairs. My brother and his friend were in their room, and my sister and I shared a room and kind of down the hall from them. And we started hearing like all this banging and crashing downstairs, and we felt like somebody had broken into the home. The first thought wasn't, oh, this is paranormal. It was, there had been some burglaries in the neighborhood, and my dad was always kind of paranoid about things like that. So lock the doors, lock the windows, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
we could hear glass breaking. It sounded like furniture was being overturned, stomping across the floor. And this wasn't just a short period of time. It went on for about half an hour. And
Wow.
yeah, and this was like back in the days when there weren't cell phones. This was in the 70s. And the only phone on the upstairs was in my parents' bedroom, but you had to cross the hall to get to it. And like we had, when we started hearing this stuff, we all huddled together in my brother's bedroom and put a chair in front of the door. We were all part of judo, took a belt and tied the doorknob shut and, across the dresser and that kind of, barricaded ourselves in there. And then we
Right.
thought, oh my God, we didn't even think to like call the police. And so we had no access to the phone unless we untied the doorknob and moved the furniture and things like that. And we were just kind of in a total panic, like what do we do? And it just went on and on and on. And it, like I said, it lasted about a half an hour or so, could be longer, but that's kind of my brother's memory as well, as it was about that period of time. It wasn't just a brief one and done type of thing. And it just sounded like the house was being totally destroyed. And finally things settled down and we waited for a while because we thought, well, these burglars got what they wanted and they left, and thank God they didn't come upstairs or what have you. And then we finally got brave enough to go downstairs, and we all went together because there was no way there was going to be one person by themselves going down the
Right.
situation. And
Exactly.
we get downstairs and it's exactly as we left it. There was no broken glass, there was no overturned furniture, no broken doorways. I mean, nothing. And we're just kind of looking at each other puzzled because we're thinking we're gonna have to call our parents, or our parents are gonna come home and we're gonna have to tell them the house got trashed. Not a thing out of place. No explanation. Of course, we didn't see anything because we were hiding, but
Right.
that was the kind of the most violent thing that went on. And then plus there were so many witnesses that you can't say that was my imagination. It's like four of us heard this whole thing and we still talk about it to this day. So
I bet that's quite the story to the kids and the grandkids or whatnot.
yeah,
Guess what we heard when we, yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, so that's not typical to have it go like 20, 30 minutes or what?
No, but
No.
most of the things that, like I said before, it would be like you could sense a presence or feel something or um hear things. Like we had this big closet at the top of the stairs that was really deep, that kind of ran the length of the house. And that door to that closet would never stay shut. And you could hear like a moaning coming from the closet, in the middle of the night. And
Huh.
but it would be just like a couple of minutes, or you hear it once or twice. It wasn't something that went on for such a prolonged period of time. Um, but I do remember one time that my parents were great entertainers and they like to throw parties or have company over and that kind of stuff. And through at least a couple of really big New Year's Eve type parties. And I remember waking up one night and to me, it was middle of the night. And, I was probably like around maybe 12-ish or something like that. And I could hear the sounds of a party going on downstairs, glasses clinking and talking and laughter and music playing and things like that. And it's like, well, I don't remember my parents saying that they were going to have a party tonight, because like when they threw the New Year's Eve party, it's like you stay in your room and don't pay any attention to what we're doing kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they hadn't said anything. And so I was like, I'm going to sneak down the stairs and take a peek and see what's going on because it sounded pretty loud. It wasn't just a couple of people. And I snuck down the stairs and kind of peeked around the corner. And as soon as like my foot hit the bottom step, it went quiet.
Oh.
There was no more noise. There was no lights on in the house at all. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. And that actually happened a couple of times. So
You're just not meant to be part of the party, huh?
I know.
Wow. So do you still, in that sense, would you still be able to hear those parties and stuff where you are to this day? Did that travel with you, or is that stuck with the house?
I've never had that experience in another house. Like the other haunted house that I lived in, um, it was different kind of experiences. It was I could there was a man and a woman there. And I know there was a man because my husband at the time, he saw this older man wearing overalls and a flannel shirt in our bedroom. And I knew there was a woman because, and then this was a house that was built in the same time period as the one that I grew up in. And I could hear a woman's skirts swishing going through the house. Um, Everybody in the house saw entities except for me because I always refused to look when I knew somebody was there. I didn't want to see it. And
Right.
but like there was one thing that happened there that was kind of along the lines of the amount of noise or whatever as the other house where my daughter, I moved into the house when my youngest daughter was 3 months old. And this was when she was this particular incident. And there was things daily at that house as well. It started the day we moved in and went on until like the day that we moved out. Um, but my daughter was in the toddler, maybe 18 months old ish, a year to 18 months old. And I was in the kitchen cooking, and my husband and my other daughter were in the living room. Well, both of them ended up coming in the kitchen and leaving my youngest daughter in the living room by herself playing with her toys. And it was brief, just like a second or two. And we hear this huge crash that sounded like a full dresser, like a tall dresser fell. And we didn't have a piece of furniture like that. But of course, we all immediately go into the other room to see because it shook the house when it fell.
Oh, wow.
And we go into the other room and she's just sitting there happily playing, like, what? Why'd y'all come running in? There was nothing that was out of place. Nothing fell over, nothing broken. The entities at that house seemed to me like they were kind of more protective, especially of my youngest daughter, because anytime that anything might possibly happen to her, or like one instance was when she was a baby and I had her in the bed with me and she almost fell over off the bed, and like I got shoved to wake me up in time to grab her before she fell off the bed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
That's
then
impressive.
yes, and then like the night that when she was old enough and I moved her into her own room, into her big girl bed, I could hear them walking around her bedroom and around her bedroom and just like circling her bed. And it kept going on and kept going on. And my daughter is asleep. She's not crying. It's not anything. And I finally had enough of it. And I went and called up the stairs and I said, she is fine. Leave her alone. And it stopped. So yeah, it was just, yeah. And she would sit there, when she got a little bit older, and you play peekaboo with your kid and everything. And this house kind of had, a big living room and an archway, and then the dining area. And we'd be in the living room sitting on the couch, and she'd start giggling, hee hee hee, I see you, peekaboo, hee 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 hee. And she would do that. This would happen many times, and it even like would happen out in the backyard, and she'd start laughing and talking to somebody that wasn't even there, and ha ha ha, I see you, ha ha ha. I never saw anything, but it was kind of creepy.
Did she say anything to you about these
She
people?
was so young at the time, and you know, I don't think she has any memories of it, but my older daughter was 9 at the time we moved into the house. And at the time, her bedroom was also upstairs. The master bedroom was downstairs, and the two girls' rooms were upstairs. And she would tell me about all these experiences that she had, but she didn't tell me at the time, except for like one or two times when she would see like a creature or an entity in the closet off my bedroom or whatever. And it's like, can I
Hmm.
sleep on the floor with you? And then she'd see something in there, and but she just didn't really talk about it until we moved out of the house. And she says, yeah, every night there was something going on, and she would just sit there and kind of suffer in silence and not tell us, and ask us for
Oh,
protection or anything. But
oh,
yeah, I know. But to her, like, even to now, I think she's 38, and she probably has had the most experiences of anyone I know. Yeah, I call her haunted. I think she's just sensitive and open to the other side,
yeah.
because everywhere she goes, she has experiences. And to her, that's just a part of her life. It's not a one and done or an every few months thing or what have you. It's a constant with
Wow,
her.
wow.
So, yeah, but it's kind of sad that she did kind of suffer through that until afterwards. And then we kind of talked about it. And she realized that I was open to talking about it. And um, uh, I think maybe she didn't, because when she was younger, like maybe 6 or something, and she told me that there was something in her closet. And she says that I reacted in a way like, there's nothing in your closet, and kind of poo-pooed it. So maybe she felt like she couldn't talk to me
Oh,
about it. But I tried to be the kind of mom that would talk about those things, but kind of that fine line of, how do you not scare them? How do you comfort them? How do you acknowledge what they experience? It's kind of a work in progress, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
But now, we talk about it quite a bit. So
No, it's everyday conversation.
yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. My son has talked to me about a few things that he's seen or dreamt of
Hmm.
within the house, and I try to help him through it. I'm still learning myself, but I'm trying to help him through it. And he hasn't seen it in a long time, but every once in a while,
And how old is
he
he?
feels it. He's now 22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when he was younger, he saw some like really creepy stuff. But I try to help him through it, and he's pretty open with all of it. We have a museum nearby, and we've been through that several times when he was growing up. It's neat to, take him to the museum, right? He just recently told me about his impact when he's in there. He feels all of these entities, and he doesn't like to be in there very much. And it's like, well, I never knew
Yeah.
that. So now I want to
Yeah.
go with him. Now that he's told us that and everything, I want to go with him and talk about it when we have those
Yes.
feelings.
Yeah.
Go through and see if we can maybe get connected to
Hmm.
somebody, or help them pass, or help them
Yeah.
go over. I mean, but yeah, I'd
Yeah.
I'd like to do that.
One of the creepiest experiences I had was in a museum.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it was in this was probably about 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. I can't remember exactly. And it was in Nevada, and I can't remember if it was Silver City or Virginia City, but there's a Mark Twain museum. And kind of like the minute I hit the outskirts of town, there's this old cemetery with the wrought iron gates around it or whatever, and kind of like passing into the town, um, what do you call it? The limits, the town
Oh,
limits.
okay. Yeah.
And I just like immediately just started feeling really uncomfortable, but I was just kind of like poo-pooed it and what have you. And it's an old historic town, and I love, old historic towns and buildings and things like that. But I just kind of had this uneasy feeling like the whole time that I was there. And then I went into this one building, and the Mark Twain Museum was in the basement. And no big deal. I'm not afraid of basements or anything
Right.
like that. And walked down in there, and it was pretty cool, but I just felt so uncomfortable the whole time. And he kept looking over my shoulder, and my partner at the time, we were the only two in there. There wasn't anybody else down there with us. And just as we kind of looked over the exhibits and things like that, it just kind of got more and more oppressive. And
Huh.
there was a thing like a old wooden toilet thing, and had a sign over it, something about Mark Twain. This was his toilet or something like that, and kind of made a joke about it. And I had, one of those big cameras, not the cell phone type camera, and I took a picture of it and was kind of making a joke about this thing. And like immediately after that, I felt like it's time to get out of here. Like we kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
felt like we were chased out of there. And we left and we tried to go to other areas in the town. And we just felt like we were being told to leave. We had to get out of there. And like we literally fled the town. And I would love to go back sometime, but it was just so bizarre because I didn't even get to see what we wanted to see. Well,
Oh.
this was a film camera that I had, and when I developed the film on that camera, between me and this toilet was a outline of the shoulders and head. There was an entity between me and this toilet, and it was
Uh-huh.
very clear. And it was kind of funny because I first, was going through my photos and thinking, oh, I must have stuck my finger in front of the lens or something. And my daughter looked at it and it's like, Mom, that's a person standing right there. And it was like, oh,
And
very strange and uncomfortable experience.
yeah, in ours, I remember going in one time, and there's this little tiny little room, and it had a bed and like a window. It wasn't a window, but it was made up to be a window, and a desk. And then on the side of the bed, there was like stairs going up. And I remember seeing this room, and I remember being in there and saying, "Okay, boys, my husband and my son." I'm like, "Okay, boys, I'm not feeling comfortable. Something it just is weird in here." This is way before me knowing anything about this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "We're out of here. I gotta go." So I stepped out, and they soon followed, and went back again. We went back, and the room wasn't there where I remembered it.
Oh, very,
And yeah, yeah, I was like, I don't remember. I know this is where we went into this room. And I was talking with my son, and he's like, "Mom, no, that's in this other area. I remember it being in this other area." And I'm like, "We got to go back because it has been a long time since we've been there
yeah.
now." So it's like, okay, I want to go back and have him show me where this room is because I haven't
Hmm.
seen it.
Yeah.
We even walked the whole thing, and I haven't seen this room since then.
Very strange.
And he's like, "No, it's back in this really corner and everything." It's like, okay, well, we're gonna have to go check it out because
Absolutely.
I haven't seen it but that one time, and it's
Hmm.
like the room's gone.
And you both remember it, regardless of where it was in the building. So
Right,
you both saw it
right,
somehow, some way.
yeah. And he did have an off feeling with that room too, but he
Yeah.
has other areas that are more intense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I want to go back now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to go back to that place and see if I feel the same way or if it was, I don't know, particularly active that day or whatever, but it was,
And you may bring it too because of you being open. You may have opened them up to come out and say, hey.
yeah, it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you never know. You never know. You
Yeah.
had mentioned this story of just before your mom had passed.
Yes. My
Yeah.
mom, I went back, my mom still lived in California, and I went back there to take care of her. And I was there for probably 8 months or so taking care of her. And she had cancer, she was getting treatment. And as far as I was concerned, she seemed to be improving. She seemed to be doing pretty well. And I felt like, she probably, in my mind, I thought she had 6 months to a year left. Oh, turns out that the things that I experienced were about 2 weeks prior to her passing away. Um, and my sister had come out to help as well, and she was experiencing things too. And like one of the things is like she had this big freezer out in the garage, and I went out to the garage to get some things to make for dinner. And I hear the garage door open and somebody come down the stairs into the garage, and I see the light shift with the shadow coming into, somebody walked into the garage, and I closed the freezer and there's nobody there. And I'm like, that was weird. And I go back in the house and I tell my sister, I just had the weirdest thing happen. And she's like, well, I was in the kitchen, and she said she had a shadow like walk through the kitchen. And we're just kind of like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. And then one day I had, and little subtle things like that were kind of going on, hearing somebody walking down the hallway or things like that. And it's like, well, that's kind of weird, but didn't really like put anything to it at all. And then one day I was coming in from the back door. She had a sliding glass door, and I walked into this big wave of perfume, and my mom was sitting there in the family room. So just right there when I come in the back door, and this perfume, like it was overwhelming. And my mom wasn't wearing any perfume, hadn't sprayed anything. And then it occurred to me that it made me think of my mom's best friend who had passed away several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was her perfume, and it was like, oh, so she came to check on my mom or whatever. And then, it got a little closer to the time that my mom passed, and we had gotten a hospital bed for her and had put it in the family room so that we could be together
Right.
until nighttime. And so I was sleeping in her bed, or was going to sleep. I was still awake, and I hear the bedroom door fly open, and I hear somebody march across the room. And it just like the energy and the feeling was so larger than life. And it occurred to me like it was my dad. It was my dad, like, look at me, I'm here, everything's fine. He always was kind of a larger in life person in life. And so like my sister and I sharing these stories and the things that were happening, and of course I went out and told her right away. It's like, you wouldn't believe what just happened. Um, that we were realizing that, her loved ones were around and ready for her, even though we were in total denial that she had plenty of time left. So why would this be going on? But they knew. So it was pretty even though it was kind of unnerving, it was special to experience that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of jealous of my brother when my mom passed. He was in the room with her,
Mm-hmm.
and when she passed, he was able to see the like the tunnel, and he
Oh,
got to see mom's face right there, and she was heading towards the tunnel, and then she turned around and told my brother, "It's gonna be okay. I'm all good."
wow.
And she was gone, and
Oh,
it's
that's
like
beautiful.
it's gorgeous. It's like I'm so jealous that he got to see that and I didn't. But I look back. It's he needed to see that.
Mm-hmm.
He needed to have that witness for his healing.
Yes. Yeah.
Healing of her being gone. So I think it was a very precious gift mom gave to him,
Yeah.
and it's really awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
happy
That's
for him to be able to have that.
amazing. Yeah, I
Hmm.
was there with my dad when he passed, and I didn't see anything, but I certainly felt his spirit leave his body and envelop me in warmth and comfort and love, and then gone. And I
Yeah.
didn't think about it, but when I told my sister about it, she's like, he gave you one last good hug goodbye. And it was like, yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah, it's so awesome. You can listen to the story. He was um, show number 7, I believe it is, in my podcast, and
Yeah.
he explains what he was seeing and everything. It's just beautiful. It's just so happy he was able to see
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
It's really
What a
awesome.
gift.
It
Yeah.
is. It is quite the gift. Absolutely quite the gift. It's beautiful. Well, our time's up already. Can you believe
I know,
that?
how fast is that?
It goes so fast. I always hate this part because I have to say goodbye. But I really enjoyed having you on the show. It's been a blast having you. And thank you for being here with us and telling us your
Thank you for
story.
having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, if anybody out there in the audience has any stories you would like to share, and I'd love it, come get to contact me and let's talk. Let's get you on the show. So, again, look at the subscribe, like buttons below and share it with everybody you know. And let's bring up the energy in the world. All right, we'll talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.